Fantasy Edge with Jonathan Chan, Kevin Kuo, Richard Savill.
Hello everybody and welcome to the Fantasy Edge. Week 1 of the fantasy football season is finally here. And drafting's still going on. It's 2 more days until football, the Bears and Packers coming up. But today we're going to be doing a little bit of predictions and talking about the news and some of the stuff that happened after a crazy roster day where all the teams cut their rosters down to the 53. And you learned actually, one thing I learned is that there's a lot of trickery that goes on with the roster cuts, but we'll get into that in a minute. First, I want to introduce my co-hosts, Jonathan Chan and Kevin Ho, both of FantasySixPack.net. How you guys doing?
Doing pretty good. How are you?
All right. Kev, are you there?
I am here and slightly sleepy, but let's get it done.
All right. First, I want to kind of bring up before we get into week 1 stuff is the roster cuts and some of the stuff that happened, Jono. I think one thing that we didn't have a podcast last week, so we didn't talk about Andrew Luck. It was totally crazy. This was probably one of the biggest shake-up roster cut days that I can remember. It had a lot of impact on our fantasy teams throughout, I don't know, everywhere. What's your thoughts on this, on the shakeups that we had just, in the past few days?
No, I mean, it shook up fantasy leagues all around, especially Andrew Luck. You're changing an entire division, an entire offense. You have to downgrade immediately. Like two guys are being drafted in the top 30, and now we have no idea what's going to happen to T.Y. Hilton or Marlon Mack. We gotta just wait and see. He's taking a big risk taking either of those guys either of them in the first 5 rounds, in my opinion.
Yeah, well, I was watching the NFL Network power rankings, and before Andrew Luck retired, they had the Indianapolis Colts at power ranked at number 5, and as I was watching this evening, they have the Colts all the way down to number 19. So, which is kind of surprising because that's Luck's old number. So maybe they did that on purpose. I don't know, but so the Colts, are dropped, and all the fantasy players have lost value. But you know something, I watched Jacoby Brissett in the preseason, and he seemed okay. Granted, these are mean-nothing games, and teams aren't really pressing, but I don't know. I think the Colts might be a little bit better than we think they are. I mean, good players are good players, and T.Y. Hilton's a good player. Marlon Mack I have some issues with. I think, Eric Ebron was a guy that Brissett was targeting, so, who knows. Kev, you have any thoughts on, we'll just get into the news, and I'll get you to start off with with the news first of all, Kevin, and that's Zeke close to signing a multi-year deal with $90 million. Does he deserve it?
I guess if he can negotiate it, then he deserves it. That's always my standing when it comes to these kind of things. Would I have paid him? Probably not. Especially if you're going to invest that much in your offensive line. Kind of makes it seem like running back talent doesn't matter as much. But I don't know. It's Jerry's money. He can do whatever he wants. And what is going on? Yeah, I think. If I'm Dallas, I understand why Dallas paid him. I'm just not sure I would.
Well, not for that length of time. We're talking like 6 years. So he's going to be.
I think Zeke is when he's in 6 years, he'll be 29.
Yeah.
Am I right? 29, right?
Yeah.
So that's not bad. I mean, Mark Ingram's 31 right now, and he's not terribly old or anything like that. I think, and there's no way that's like a 6-year guarantee. So there's definitely some kind of out after 3 or 4 years or something like that. So
yeah, it has to be. I can't. It must be a very, very complex deal. But I'll turn to you, Jono, for the Melvin Gordon issue. But before that, actually, what my other question was to you, Jono, was do you think Zeke will play in week 1?
He has 3 days to do that. For 4 days. 4 days to sign for Sunday. Obviously, if he doesn't get the deal, he's not going to play. But if he actually signs, I don't know. Obviously, if he plays, you have to put him in your lineups. But how good was his training in Cabo, right? He wasn't with the team. wasn't in training camp. Reports from his agent are saying that he's ready to go, but you never know what kind of training he was doing away from the team.
It's I think it's they say it's a 50-50 chance. So if you flip the coin, I think he plays. If I was to guess, I think he plays. I think they'll get him. I think they'll get him ready. Because you got to remember, sometimes players that are injured, they don't even practice until like the Thursday. Thursday's kind of like the one day that a player that's injured has to practice, has to get 1 day of practice in. Otherwise, they're questionable or game time decision and stuff like that. But I think Zeke will be ready. I don't think he'll be game time decision or anything like that. I think he'll get some practice in. So we'll go with that. But anyways, the other holdout of note is Melvin Gordon. The Chargers gave Melvin Gordon the opportunity to go seek a trade, which I thought they should have done a lot earlier. But, they waited all this time, and apparently he's in trade talks with an undisclosed team. So nobody knows who they're going with. Jono, do you think Melvin Gordon, now his situation is a little different. He can miss games. So do you think he'll just drag his feet until something comes along, or are we basically going to see Eckler and Justin Jackson, and he's going to be on another team?
Yeah, I think we're not going to see him play for the Chargers unless they cave and give him a new contract, unless they see that Eckler and Jackson can't actually handle, being the lead backs. He's not going to play for them without a new contract. And of course, they've already said they're not going to negotiate. Mm-hmm. The only way I see this resolving is with a trade, but other teams know that the Chargers have zero leverage in this, and they can offer whatever garbage they want. It doesn't really affect them. The only team I can think of that would be desperate enough to do that would be Houston, but they've already given away every asset they own, so there's nothing left for them to give.
That's true. That's very true. Kev, any other teams that are possible landing spots for Melvin, or any team that would really pay him what he wants?
I don't know. It seems like the league consensus on him is that he's just not worth that much. The Chargers are apparently asking for a first and a fifth pick, which is definitely way too much. On top of that, you're going to have to pay him a new contract. Like, we just saw Jadeveon Clowney basically in the same situation, an expiring contract, go for a third round pick. I don't think Melvin Gordon is more valuable than that. So I can't imagine a team is not only going to give up a draft pick, but also pay him big money afterwards. I just don't see it happening.
No, I don't see him getting what he wants from another team. Mainly because if he had done this, I think the Chargers played this right, is because they knew everybody's rosters are pretty much set in stone now. By introducing another guy and then paying the money, it sort of upsets the apple cart in a lot of teams. So the timing that the Chargers did for this was kind of smart because, well, in a way, kind of nasty for Melvin Gordon, from Melvin Gordon's perspective. If they'd done it a lot earlier, Melvin Gordon would have a lot more time to shop, and he could probably have time to get what they want, especially when teams were, still putting their rosters together and stuff. So, while teams are a little bit more locked in, apart from a couple of teams which we'll discuss momentarily, I don't think he has anywhere. I don't think there's very few places he can land now, at the price, especially when, I don't know. I don't quite understand how the cap would work for teams that take on Gordon. So we'll just have to see. But I think he's a week to week situation, whether he sees the field or not. What I
would say is that most likely what's going to happen is that a team is going to suffer an injury to their lead guy, and they're going to need to bring in Melvin Gordon to be the main guy, kind of like what we saw in Houston, and then getting Duke Johnson. I mean, obviously they got Duke Johnson before that happened, but something like that where maybe a team who thinks they're okay now might need him in 2 weeks or so.
Very likely. Very good scenario there. Continuing on, we were talking about the big shakeups. One of the biggest shakeups, and it hurt a lot of people who drafted Damian Williams, and that was LaShawn McCoy to the Chiefs. Did you draft it? Oh, well, then we'll start with you, Jono, so you can vent on this move of LaShawn McCoy to the Chiefs. Go ahead and have your vent.
can't even be mad, right? They had two very unproven backs starting in one of the best offenses in the league, and they signed a guy that their head coach is very familiar with. I can't hate on the move football-wise. I can hate on the move as a fantasy owner, cutting Damian Williams' touches in half. He's gone from a low-end RB1, high-end RB2 to a low-end RB2, possibly a backup, based on how McCoy looks in an actual offense. And it sucks, but the offense is going to be much better for it in real football terms.
Yeah, well, I've got my own beef because I reached a little for Darwin Thompson. Yeah, well, I 7th round. But,
I think that pick was one of the funniest we had in the entire draft. I don't think Kevin could breathe for like 5 minutes.
Yeah, well, I like to do crazy stuff sometimes. So, and
but it was your birthday, so we'll give you a pass on that one.
So yeah. But he's down to a stash now. So, but a good stash. I think he's a decent stash. But the problem is that I hate stashing players. But he's a stash, but not only that, I think Kevin, is this backfield a committee?
I tend to not think so. I think someone is going to distinguish themselves. I don't really believe, if you're looking at a committee, my idea of a committee is that all the backs do different things, and these 3 backs all kind of do the same thing. They're all kind of just well-rounded. So I think one of them is going to distinguish themselves. I get that McCoy got money, guaranteed money. I get that he has a history with Andy Reid, but, I'm not gonna buy it that he's gonna come in here and take, instantly 35% of the touches or anything like that. That being said, obviously downgrade Damian Williams a little bit because McCoy is better than Hyde, but I don't know. I don't know if that I buy that Damian Williams is not a low end or a high end RB2 like he's been this whole time.
Right. Well, and staying with you, Kev, the team that this is a running back by committee team, the team that McCoy left, the Buffalo Bills. A lot of people are saying Singletary, but most are saying it's actually Gore that's the front man of this group.
Yeah, I mean, nominally he is the front man of the group. He's going to get the starts. Singletary will play a lot, but this is probably a backfield that I'm going to avoid. There's not too much value to me in that Buffalo offense, especially running the ball. Their offensive line isn't that great. Gore is going to be steady, but basically unusable. Like, I can't imagine ever really guarding him. Singletary is the one I think if he gets hold of it, might be able to do something with it and might be able to be, somewhat exciting. But with Yeldon there, he's going to do most of the pass catching work also. I don't really think of them are too usable.
Right. Jono, what's your thoughts on Singletary? And has he got a chance to perhaps break out of the pack?
Yeah, I mean, I think he does. All offseason we've heard how all the praise that both McCoy and Gore were, heaping on him. He looked good in preseason. He's not the fastest guy or the strongest guy, but he has enough skills. He looked good enough to be able to break through. The key here is whether or not he can get enough touches to be viable, right? Because TJ Yeldon proved he can be a serviceable back. Frank Gore is apparently never going to stop playing. And it's a situation where he can prove to be good enough, but I think there's enough viable backs there that they're going to split the carries and he won't be startable in I guess he won't be a confident start for most of the year.
Yeah, the one thing I've noticed about the Chiefs throughout the years is that they've always sort of had a main back. I mean, we're going back to there's always that. It was always McCoy was sort of like the front man, but then there would be some other guy that would come in, and it would be kind of an RBBC, but kind of not. I can't remember some of the names are so obscure now that of guys that I recall on the Bills that weren't quite the front guys, but we're good. We're good players to have on your team. So I think all three. I mean, Yeldon, Singletary, and Gore. I think they're all they have some sort of value. I just don't know whether it translates into half decent flex on a week by week basis. Other news, John, we'll start with you on the Clowney signing of the Seahawks. Are the Seahawks? They're always going to be a streaming defense no matter what. But do they become a little more high valued now? Or
I mean, of course, you can't add Jadeveon Clowney to your team and not increase in value. The question now, I think, becomes: did the Seahawks go from streamer to team you can keep all year?
Yeah.
I mean, they have a pretty tough schedule to start. They get the Steelers, Saints, Rams, and Browns in the first 6 weeks. So not a great start to the season, but of course, when they have weaker opponents, they are a prime streamer if they're not owned already.
Yeah. Not really fantasy talk, Kev, but do you like Clowney on the Seahawks? What do you think it does for their chances?
Yeah, I mean, I think it does help them out a lot. I think the Seahawks continuously find a way to reload that defense, and I think at the end of the day, they want to run the football. They want to let Russell Wilson make plays, and they want to play really good defense. So I think it makes a lot of sense. And like Jonathan said, like they do have a tough schedule to start, but if you can hold on to them, they get a good stretch of games against the NFC West, and they should be able to do some hay.
There's two issues I have with Clowney myself, and one of them is why did Houston give him away for pretty much next to nothing? I think it was a 3rd round pick and a couple of guys who play on the special teams, linebackers, the backup linebackers, And the second issue is Clowney's. He's never really been a healthy player. He often doesn't have the best health that I've seen from the amount of times that he's played in his time in Houston. So. And also, there's one thing that I've noticed too about Clowney is that it seems like it's just one particular game. Like, what was it? The Outback Bowl somebody mentioned was about the only game where Clowney really shined, and sort of like everybody's taken, because I don't really recall a lot of great plays from Clowney when he was at Houston. So I'm not questioning his performance. He's definitely got the but Pete Carroll has a way of molding players, and he's a pretty easygoing guy, so we'll have to see how that goes. Next stop is the Buccaneers backfield, Kev. It looks like, I don't think it's a committee, but, well, it's a committee and it's not, but I tend to think of this as a hot hand competition going on here. Do you agree?
I do agree, and I think Dare Ogunbowale is going to win it. I just no faith in Peyton Barber to do anything. He was really unproductive last year in not unlimited role. Like, we saw enough of him that he's just a guy. Ronald Jones just can't put it together. And by all accounts, Dare, I'm just going to go with Dare. I think that's how you pronounce it. He is the best pass catching back in that group, the second best pass blocker behind Peyton Barber. I think he's really going to have a chance to win that backfield. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong. It's fine. But, yeah, I mean, I don't know. At his draft price, you can get him for free at the end of every draft. And if it doesn't work out, you just drop him.
Yeah, that's the thing.
Right there.
Yeah. Are you buying any stock of Dario Ogunbowale, Jono?
No, I'm not buying any stock in the Tampa Bay backfield. It's a mess back there. I don't like. We saw Dare in the preseason. No idea what he's gonna do in the regular season, and I'm not gonna buy stock in the draft. I'll monitor it closely to see what happens, but I don't think it's going to be a backfield that's anything else than a desperation start, really.
Yeah, I consider I actually kind of think that, believe it or not, I think the Washington Redskins backfield is better. Mainly because of Adrian Peterson. I think Adrian Peterson can actually, do something for people. Whereas this backfield, I have no faith in Geis, but I don't know why. I just can't get behind Geis for some reason. But I consider, but I don't know. Bruce Arians, he knows what he's doing. He's a good coach. Brought in TJ Logan. So, I don't know. We'll have to see. But to you, Jono, the other move, of course, is Carlos Hyde. And you mentioned him briefly. He's to the Texans. What happens there? Is it kind of like a 1A, 1B or something else?
I think they may have gotten him to be a 1A, 1B, honestly. I think this kills Duke Johnson's value. He's I think now people are drafting Duke as, RB2. He was forced to get carries, but now he might go back to the role he had last year in Cleveland. And it sucks because Carlos Hyde probably won't play very well, but they'll give him carries to keep Duke healthy, and it's bad for everybody. All around for fantasy owners. But I think you have to pick up Hyde at this point. You can't ignore him because he's going to get the early down and goal line carries.
Right. What about you, Kev? Do you think it's San Francisco 49ers type of thing?
No, I can and I will be ignoring Carlos Hyde. I just don't think he's that good. Nothing that we've seen the last 2 seasons suggests that he's any good, and he's just kind of a filler. His trade value, what did he get traded for? Like a backup lineman and a 7th round pick? Like, I could care less. Like, they might as well have just brought in some street running back. It's kind of the same thing. Carlos Hyde is kind of a low-key big name because he was a high draft pick and Ohio State guy, but he averaged 3.3 yards per carry last year. He was traded twice, cut by the Chiefs before he even played a game. Couldn't beat out, Darrell Williams, who I'm not even sure if I have that name right. He couldn't beat him out for a job. I don't think he's going to take the early down touches. I don't think he's going to take the goal line touches. I think he's just a guy. And I'm still going forward with my Duke Johnson shares.
Yeah, I tend to agree. If Carlos Hyde couldn't beat Darrell Williams on the Chiefs, I think he's kind of ignorable on the Texans, but he is still going to be a relief back. And the only thing I worry about Carlos Hyde is that he vultures touchdowns from Duke Johnson. I think that's probably the worst that can happen, which is probably a likely occurrence, the way it goes. So that's my take on that. But yeah, I kind of agree with you, Kev, Carlos Hyde is kind of a ghost, except on the goal line carries. And I mentioned, of course, San Francisco. Now, San Francisco released their depth chart. All the teams have to do this. I don't think they like doing it, but they have to do it. But they released their depth charts, and they put Breda ahead of Coleman. What do you think of that, Kev?
I think something that's important to note is that it's not the team that officially releases these depth charts. It's their PR people. So, I mean, they're going off what they see, and obviously they're not lying or anything like that. But by all accounts, what we've seen in the preseason, Tevin Coleman's been running with the ones pretty much every time out. You've had beat writers say pretty confidently that it's going to be something like a 50-40 with Coleman and Breda. So, I mean, it's not really that big of a deal which one of them is the RB1, which one's the RB2. But I wouldn't really put too much stock into the fact that Breda was listed as the RB1.
Right. I take it, John, there's no game change. There's no game changer there.
No, I don't think so. It's that, like you said, it's probably going to be a pretty even split, and got to deal with it.
Right. So that's basically all the news, unless I've missed something. Have I missed anything, you guys? I don't think so.
I don't think so.
I think we've had all the things, but we got some fun stuff to do now. We're going to do our predictions and our dream team, and basically it's a pretty simple thing. Basically, it's who we think what our best team is, what we think is going to be the best fantasy team as at the end of that would beat any team if we can have all these players. So basically, it's going to be guys that are basically coming off the out of the first round. A lot of them, not necessarily every single one, but most of them. But we've got here 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we've got 15 players, and naturally, probably a lot of them will come out of the first round of drafts. But we'll see who we come up with, and I'll post these up with the article so people can read them as we go. But my QB1, I don't know. It's pretty obvious to me, and Patrick Mahomes is obviously the highest drafted quarterback everywhere. Nobody is drafting Patrick Mahomes ahead of anyone. I think there's the kind of the sophomore jinx people talk about, but I don't know. Mahomes is just so confident in his long ball ability and every all-around ability. He's just amazing player to watch. I haven't seen a player like him since Dan Marino, and he is the ultimate gunslinger that the NFL needs, and Patrick Mahomes has to be my number one, and I don't really need much reason for that. So I will type in Patrick Mahomes while you think about your choice, Jono, for RB1.
I mean, I think RB1. I'm gonna go a little bit off and say it's gonna be Alvin Kamara. Everyone's going Saquon, but there's something I just don't trust about the Giants' offense. Mainly that they're going to be terrible, and I think when teams can focus in on Saquon even more than they could last year, we'll see a lot more of the the volume where Saquon was rushing for 2 yards, 2.5 yards, 3 yards, and then he'll break a long one. But I think this year a lot more teams are going to key in on the fact that he can break it anytime. And we're going to see a lot more of those short runs, stuffed runs against stack boxes. That'll hurt his efficiency, I think. And Kamara, with Mark Ingram gone, he'll get a little bit more touches, and he'll overtake him as the RB1.
Kev, RB2.
Yeah, John, making things easy for me, I'm going to go with Saquon Barkley if you're not going to, because I don't care about efficiency. I just want all the volume. The offense was trash last year. It's going to be trash this year, except their offensive line is going to be slightly better. So I think that balances out a little bit. Saquon is going to be the focal point of that offense without a doubt. He's going to get, 300 plus touches without a doubt. And he's going to break a lot of them for long plays. And if he gets a couple stuffs, that's fine. Red zone won't show me that. So, I'm going to go with Saquon Barkley, and it's not particularly close for me.
Okay, and that's a wide receiver one for me. And I'm going to take somebody that you're not going to, well, you might suspect it, but I think the WR1, Baker Mayfield, how much better is he than Eli Manning? A lot better. And Odell Beckham Jr. playing with, it's something I just got to see. I just got to see Baker Mayfield playing with Odell Beckham Jr. I may have made a mistake by not making him my number one, but I can't, because of DeAndre Hopkins is just incredible. But the only reason I have Odell Beckham Jr. as my number 3 wide receiver in the ranks is because he's unseen. He's unproven. It's unseen. But if I was just to use a little bit of intuition, I'm going to have to say it's Odell Beckham Jr. With this guy, because he's, maybe you can type that in for me, Kev, since you got the pen. So pen me in for WR1 will be Odell Beckham Jr. with a new quarterback, a better quarterback, an outstanding quarterback. Okay, who's up? It's Jono.
Yeah, I see that somebody had already written my answer in there for me. I guess I can take... No, I'm going to go... if you go Dell, I guess I have to go DeAndre Hopkins. Yeah, for everything you just said, he's amazing. He has shown great chemistry with Deshaun Watson, pretty much unstoppable last year. And if Watson and himself can stay healthy with Will Fuller there for, the 8 games he'll play this year, again, there's not much you can say about him. He's consistent, and he'll be up there in the top 2 for sure.
Yeah, he's almost like he's just weirdly good, DeAndre Hopkins. He just amazes you with the way he just breaks free. Every time he breaks free, and he finds a way to catch that football. There's nobody better in the game, and I completely agree that DeAndre Hopkins is great. So you round out the wide receivers, Kev. Who will it be?
Yeah, so my guy is going to be Julio Jones. We all know his resume by now. He's a legit candidate to put up 2,000 yards receiving. He's going to play 13 of 16 games in a dome. The Falcons defense is going to not be great again, so they're going to be in a lot of shootouts. They're going to have, every team in that division is going to have offensive firepower, so I could see legitimately every game in the NFC South having an over-under of like 55, which of course bodes well for the Falcons offensive players. I really like Julio this year.
Oh.
There's not much else to say.
Why does he beat Adams?
Adams to me is a lot more touchdown dependent than Julio, and I know the running joke is that Julio doesn't score touchdowns, but the statistics show that, touchdowns is the most volatile stat in football year to year. So if you're going to give me a guy who's almost guaranteed to get 1,500 yards versus a guy who needs to get 12 or 13 touchdowns to be the same value, give me the guy who gets yards, and, he might score 10 to 11 touchdowns this year and really just blow Adams out of the water.
Yeah, here I am with the other obvious one. And, of course, it has to be for the tight end one, Travis Kelce. I mean, the guy gets targeted so much in that Chiefs offense. I think between him and, I'm not sure, I think Zach Ertz got, they were well over 100. And the next nearest to them was George Kittle, who, I'm not sure, but I'm not sure if Kittle could be, I hate to say this about George Kittle, but I have a very nervous feeling about if he comes up for me to pick. I always get a busty kind of feeling with him for some reason. I don't know what it is. I mean, he gets a lot of targets. I mean, a lot more targets than the fourth guy, which is O.J. Howard. But I kind of don't consider Kittle in the top three. But it's Travis Kelce by a mile for the targets, and he's good, and Mahomes just finds him everywhere. So we all know Travis Kelce. Travis Kelce is like he's the new Gronk, so to speak. So that's my tight end. So you guys get the flex. I get the boring guy. You guys get to do a flex, was kind of interesting. John, who you got for your flex number one? There's two flex.
Are we PPR or standard?
Let's just do half PPR. Go in between.
Okay, I'm gonna go. I'll go safe with it and say Devontae Adams. Actually, you know what? No.
Whoa! Change your mind. No, you're allowed one change of mind, I guess.
I like Devontae Adams. No, I gotta go McCaffrey on this one. I like having my running backs, and Christian McCaffrey is just, he's gonna catch the passes, and the Panthers' backfield has nobody behind him. I've heard some people try to talk up Jordan Scarlett. No, and McCaffrey's still gonna get all the work he can handle, despite what Ron Rivera's saying about his workload, and he's about a sure thing as you're gonna get.
Yeah, he's a pretty solid player, and he's durable too. He's a very durable player. I don't know how. Every time he gets a hit, but he keeps up bouncing up. He's okay, but he handles large workloads. I'm surprised. He's a very different, durable kind of player. I gotta touch wood about him. You just never know. The next guy up is apparently not that good. But so I don't know what happens to the backfield if anything happens to McCaffrey. I mean, you probably got to take the next man up, but apparently next man up's not very good. Kev, I see that you've made something kind of obvious there too.
Yeah, I thought Jonathan, when he said he was going to go safe, was going to go with, which now that I think about it, doesn't make a lot of sense. But Zeke is, I mean, this contract is going to get done. Let's put that to rest. It's going to get done. Whether he plays week 1 or not, he's going to be, a top 3 running back, top 4 running back. I mean, it's just, I don't imagine that he's going to show up out of shape, or drastically out of shape. Even if he does, there's no reason to think that he's just going to be useless. So, if he can really ramp up within these next couple weeks, I think by the end of the season, you're looking at one of the top guys behind one of the best offensive lines and one of the offenses that wants to run the ball the most, et cetera, et cetera. He's going to catch the ball. He's going to do a bunch of stuff that you want in your running back, a good pass protector, all that stuff. And, I think at this position, if we're talking flexes, you definitely take a running back over a wide receiver. And so give me.
Yeah. So finally, we fill up our bench spots. We got 6 bench spots to fill up. My first bench spot, of course, is going to be the one you almost said, Jono. It has to be Devontae Adams. He's the, almost did it in all caps there. Devontae Adams. Let me type it in. There he is. Devontae Adams, the most targeted player on the Green Bay Packers. The Packers, though, Aaron Rodgers, he's got a lot of weapons this year. I really wouldn't count the Packers out as a very strong playoff contender. I know Equinemius St. Brown is out, but they've got this guy Jay Kumro who's joined the group, but he's still behind Scantling and Geronimo Allison. But those two are very good wide receivers in their own right, and so everything's looking positive for the Packers, and of course Devontae Adams. And yes, Kev, he is a little touchdown dependent, but he's catching them. So And also, I won't count out Jimmy Graham as a very strong tight end sleeper this year. So that's my take on. Oops, I put Devontae Adams in the wrong. Hey, you moved Devontae Adams. No, it was Ezekiel Elliott. Took Zeke out. All right. Who's up? Jono, bench spot number 2.
I'm gonna go with Nick Chubb. A little off the board, but there's no, same thing with McCaffrey. There's no competition behind him, at least for the first 8 games. And even then, the looming threat of Kareem Hunt, I'm not super worried about it. Chubb will, at this time, start the year as a starter. He has 8 games to prove himself. Last season, he almost had 1,000 yards, only starting, half the season, whatever it was. And Hunt, yeah, he's a talented back, but I don't think they brought him in to steal Nick Chubb's job. He's not going to get to practice until week 10 after their bye. It's a rough situation to be in, and Chubb is going to do everything on the ground for that team on a good offense, finally. So I think he'll be consistent and good all year.
Yeah, Chubb is an interesting one. He came into, I remember in the Scott Fish Bowl, he wasn't getting drafted until way well into near the end of the second round. And now he's definitely well inside the first round. People woke up to him, which I'm not surprised. He's a good solid a late first round pick, I think. And people woke up to that fact. I think he even has a chance to join the top 5 RBs easily. I mean, of course, he's only got like a couple away now, but he wasn't that before. So yeah, I'm with that. Kev, who's your bench spot number 1?
So I think my guy is going to actually be James Conner. Before literally this moment, I would have said David Johnson, but I've never been put in this situation before, and push come to shove, I'm actually more confident that Conner is going to have a better season. Of course, it's just, more belief in the offense. The offensive line is a lot better. Obviously, he's going to have a role. I don't believe the Jalen Samuels hype, and Benny Snell is nothing to be afraid of. David Johnson is going to do well in that Arizona offense, but the offensive line does concern me when it comes time to, score touchdowns and stuff. So, Conner is going to be my guy. He's going to get 250 touches, scoring opportunities all over the place. His ability to catch the ball is still there. So yeah, I'm going to go with Conner.
Yeah, I like the pick. My first bench spot. I guess I'm kind of stuck. See, well, it's got to be, and this guy has a huge amount of upside. And you know this from last year. I remember he was on your team, Kevin. He was fantastic for your fantasy team. Juju Smith-Schuster.
Yes, sir.
Great player. Came out of, and he was actually one of the few rookie wide receivers that did well right out the gate. So, yeah, Schuster definitely has to be my bench spot number 2. So it gets a little tougher for you, Jono. You get a little more.
I'm going spread.
Michael Thomas.
Michael Thomas. That Saints offense is still good, but now it will definitely just revolve around Kamara and Thomas specifically. Thomas is one of the biggest target hogs in the league. Amazing catch rate, and if the ball is thrown to him, he will produce, and he's going to see a lot of targets, and the consistency, the touchdowns are going to be there. Thomas is, again, a fail-safe, and he's going to be great this year.
Okay, Kev, you got the final bench spot of our dream team.
This is an interesting one. I think I will go with the guy past last round. I think I'll go with David Johnson.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think it's just too much upside to really pass up. I mean, we know the guy can get it done. He's still 27 years old. He's going to catch a ton of passes in that offense, for being honest. Last year he was probably the worst he'll ever be in, the worst situation he'll ever be in, and still finished as the RB9. So this year you gotta expect that there's going to be more running lanes in that air raid offense. He's going to catch the ball a little bit more. They're going to play really, really up tempo. So even if the offensive line does struggle, I think it's not going to be worse than it was last year. So, I think he has the upside to finish as a top 7 running back, something like that.
Yeah. All right, you guys and your Josh Gordon jokes. But Josh Gordon actually, to tell you the truth, it's because of Josh Gordon and, I might add, Demaryius Thomas, who looked awesome in the last. Of course, it was against the Giants' bubble players, but I still think Demaryius Thomas, what an addition. And they got him for free next. You know, he still got something in the tank. I mean, he's behind Edelman and Gordon, but I know you kind of made a joke about who was actually supposed to go in here. Who was actually your first wide receiver? I forgot. Was it? Nuke. Right.
Yeah.
I better put that in so I remember.
I mean, I'll say Josh Gordon too.
I don't even love
1,300 yards and 45 touchdowns.
Well, you remember when I was I was kind of knocking because I was saying that Josh Gordon, he's definitely better than Michael Floyd.
Even sarcastically, that's such an insult.
But he is. But Michael Floyd got cut. So, but Josh Gordon didn't. He made the team. Where have I got him? Just to let you know that I've warmed to Josh Gordon because I think doing a little more research on him now to see how he's doing. So he seems to have his head on straight. He is currently got the running backs up here. I'll never find him in that list. He is currently my WR27. And actually, I think he should be better than Jeffrey, to be honest. Could even be better than Robinson, to be fair. But I don't know, because the problem is that there's so many mouths to feed all of a sudden in that offense. You got James White there. He's catching balls. You got, of course, Edelman. And then there's, I already mentioned Demaryius Thomas, but Josh Gordon, But I think Josh Gordon is a good end zone threat. So that's my take. I'm a little more warmer to him. Yeah, I was kidding you about Michael Floyd, but anyways. Let's finish off the show with our predictions for 2019. And we'll go through these really quick because we've got about 10 minutes left in the show, so we should be fine. Who will score the first touchdown? Of course, the Bears play the Packers in the 100th season. Hard to believe it's the 100th season already. Wow. 100 seasons of football. And this is the 100th, so they're going to be doing the Packers. I don't know. They're not. I hope they don't dress up in their. I hope this isn't going to be a retro, like the what do they call it, Kev? When they wear uniforms from days gone by.
Throwback uniforms.
Throwbacks, yeah. That'll be something. You want to put any money on whether throwbacks? I don't think they do the throwbacks because it would just be too tacky, and I don't think they do throwbacks.
Yeah.
You think they do throwbacks?
They're not going to do it week one. So
no, I didn't think they would. But my guy, I think who will score the first touchdown? I think it will be Allen Robinson of the Bears. I think it's always the Bears always first. What happens always in Bears and Green Bay games is that the Bears go and they score in the opening drives and then literally do nothing until the half. Maybe get a field goal, or something or a couple of field goals or something like that. And then the second half they stir it up again. But it always seems that those games go like that. They get the crowd all excited that, the Bears are really taking it to the Packers, and they have a big first quarter, and then everything just falls apart. But so I'm taking Allen Robinson as the first touchdown of 2019. Kev?
Yeah, I'm gonna go. I kind of like that since he's running routes against Kevin King, who's Green Bay's worst cornerback. Similar to that, I'm going to go with my first touchdown being scored by Geronimo Allison. The Bears, I just think Packers will score first. They're a little more consistent. Obviously, they have Aaron Rodgers. So, their defense, the Bears defense is weaker, at nickel corner than they are at the boundary cornerbacks. And, I was picking between Geronimo Allison and Jimmy Graham. Allison's someone who's gotten a little bit of hype this offseason, whereas I kind of believe Jimmy Graham's a little bit washed. So I'm going to go with Allison.
Okay. Jono?
I'm just going to say Devontae Adams. There's nobody else that Rodgers would want to throw to more, and I just assume that he's going to throw it to Devontae Adams and get that touchdown.
All right. Best and worst records. Which teams will have the best and worst records when it's all said and done? And this is irrespective of conference, of course. I'm going to say the Saints. One thing about the Saints as the best record is because one thing I noticed about the Saints is that they are hoarding offensive linemen. They have got lots of offensive linemen. If they have an offensive lineman go down, they've got a guy that can step right up and fill that and fill the role perfectly. They have got excellent depth at offensive lineman. I think there's only one guy that they released from the offensive line. They tried to keep as many as they can because they didn't want anybody else to get them. So they are hoarding their offensive linemen, and with good reason. They've got a ton. And I'll tell you something, offensive linemen make a huge difference in the NFL if you have good ones, and they've got a lot of them, and they're not letting anybody else have any of them. So I'm taking the Saints, and my is the Dolphins. The Dolphins are a team to me. They are a team that are built to lose. And I know the coach has taken a little exception to this because he's been hearing a lot of this chatter about the Dolphins are a team built to lose. But I don't know. To me, it's true. And Kevin, since you're up next, you can speak to that because I noticed that they're on your list as worst team as well.
Yeah, I mean, it was between them and a couple other teams, but ultimately, I think if you just look at the dearth of talent on their team, especially at the offensive line, which I totally agree with you, it's really important. They just traded their best offensive lineman, didn't get any contributing players this year. All their skill players are young. They traded away their best defenders this offseason, Olivier Vernon, some other guy I'm forgetting, and it's a fire sale in Miami. I get it. They should be rebuilding, but they're going to lose a ton of games. The only thing I don't really get is why they're starting Fitzpatrick. But hey, Fitzpatrick he might win you a couple games, but he might lose a couple games. So, the Dolphins, I think the biggest over-under is 4.5, and I'm kind of tempted to go under on that.
Yeah, I think we see both quarterbacks. I think it'd be quarterback by committee. It's so bad. Who's your best? Who's best record?
Oh yeah, my best record is gonna be the Patriots. Yeah, I get it. Gronk retired. I get it. Their offensive lineman has blood clots and is gone for the season and whatever. The Patriots are gonna roll. I think you want to play. If you're playing who's gonna have the best record, you want to go with the team that is in a bad division. I think them. I think head and shoulders above the Jets and the Bills and the Dolphins. Like I said, I mean that should be five wins easily. Then I think you're looking at an improved defense and an offense that's still going to be good without Gronk. They might be more run centric, but I mean no matter what, I think they're just going to make it work. You could pretty much pencil them in for 11 wins. Maybe they get 12. Maybe they get 13. I think they're probably the best bet for best record.
Jono?
Yeah, I had to not say Pats. It took a lot for me not to say Pats, but best record, I'm going to agree with you and go Saints. I think a couple of years in a row now, they just some of the most heartbreaking losses in the playoffs. I think now they're going to finally break through and hit that best record, and hopefully I think I have them make the Super Bowl too. But yeah, Saints, like you said, everything you said. Worst, I'm going to go Cardinals. I'm going to be a little different here. I know the Cardinals are looking way better than the Dolphins, but I think they play in a much tougher division. They don't get the Jets twice a year. And their offensive line, I don't know. Kyler's obviously better than Fitzpatrick and theoretically Rosen too, but I think the Cardinals, they play in a tougher division and a tougher conference. I think they're going to be a better team, but they'll have a worse record than the Dolphins will.
Yeah, you know what? I'm not a Kyler Murray truther. I'm just not. I can't get on. I couldn't not got on that bandwagon, and I've never understood it. People are all kind of gaga over Kyler Murray. Yeah, he's good and everything, but he's kind of raw, sort of. He's not quite in the same mold as like Deshaun Watson when he came in. He's not. First of all, he's not on as well. I don't know. The Texans' offense at the time when Watson took over wasn't that great. So, but he's got weapons. But I really do think you're right. The Cardinals will sort of limp along, and they are in a tough division. They got the Seahawks, right, for one. They got the Rams there as well, and of course the other one. Who's in that division? I'm missing the other team.
The Niners. The
Niners, of course. Well, yeah, they have a chance they have a chance to keep up with the Niners. That's about it. But I think it's a very they got to beat the Niners too. Biggest breakout. John, we'll do around the turn this time.
Biggest breakout. We're going wide receiver breakout.
Yep.
Okay. I'm
Which
gonna
seems
go
kind of
against
odd
it.
considering your last pick for worst record.
Yeah. Hey, I mean, you can have a good offense and a bad record, right?
Oh, no. Yeah, I know.
I know. My breakout's gonna be Christian Kirk. He showed quite a bit at the end of last season, and now he's got a full off season to work with his new, far better rookie quarterback. They're going to be in a more open offense, and he's returning punts. So if you're in a punt return league, he's going to have some solid points there. But Christian Kirk, he was solid last year, and he'll do even better this year with a better quarterback and a more open offense.
Breakout. How far up a breakout? Like, because right now, where is he? He's around like a mid-range WR2, right? Or
he's ranked at wide receiver 35, so that puts him as a low end
low
wide
end.
receiver.
Yeah.
I mean, I think he could be upside wise, like a consistent low end wide receiver 2.
Low end. Okay.
I think he's this year's Tyler Boyd. I think that's where you put him. 1,000 yards, maybe 6 to 8 touchdowns. That gets you wide receiver 20-ish.
Yeah, that sounds fair.
So, right, okay, all right. No, that's good. That's good. That exceeds his expectations. That's quite an upgrade. Kev?
Yeah. So Christian Kirk would have been my pick. I'm really high on him this year. I think everything Jonathan says applies. My guy is a guy much lower down the board. Dante Moncrief, currently being taken as a wide receiver 47. I mean, if you just look at it, the Steelers offense, Ben Roethlisberger can support 2 wide receivers. That's obvious. Juju is probably going to, do whatever he does, but there's still a lot that's going to be left over for someone to pick up. I don't really think Vance McDonald, I mean, he's going to do well for a tight end, but he's not going to do well enough to make up for Antonio Brown leaving. So someone's going to get some work, and it's Moncrief or James Washington, and give me the guy who, has a record of doing it. Moncrief actually once upon a time was young, uprising, wide receiver. He's still kind of young, 28 years old. So
is he 28? I thought he was 27.
27, 28, 27, whatever he is.
I know. It doesn't seem like it. Does. It seems like he's a lot older. It seems like he's been in the league forever. But
he seems like he's been in the league forever. But he's not that old. He's a big body. I think he's been running with the ones most of the off seasons. I think he's going to smash his ADP. 47 is kind of a joke. I would have him closer to the lower end, the mid 30s probably.
So you think? So we're moving him from.
I mean, I take him over Marvin Jones. I take him over Marquez Valdez-Scantling. I take him over Corey Davis probably. Definitely over James Washington. There's a lot of these guys who I'd take him over just off the strength of the offense that he's in.
Yeah.
And, I mean, he could also, I mean, he's a guy who's caught, 7 touchdowns before. So, you can get 800 yards, 8 touchdowns, something like that, something light. That's wide receiver 37, something like that.
Yeah. It's good. He's a good target. But again, I could see him getting a huge upgrade. It'll be great for that. But there is that James Washington factor. I think James Washington, it's just between you and me. I think he's better, James Washington. But Moncrief he holds the chalice at the moment. See if that changes. But I like Moncrief as things stand.
James Washington going forward is probably the better receiver. But at the moment, Moncrief has the starting job. I don't see him losing the starting job necessarily. Kind of like we all thought Eli Rogers was going to be some amazing guy. But ultimately, I think Moncrief still keeps his job.
Right. My guy is Mike Williams. I really like Mike Williams this year. In fact, I think Mike Williams will. This is going to be kind of a bold thing. I think he joins the WR1s this year.
Top 12 wide receiver?
Yeah, he'll be in the top 12. I think he makes the step. Mike Williams, he's had a perfect progression. From his, granted he was injured most of his rookie year, but I think this offense is starting to evolve towards, and Mike Williams to me is kind of that he's kind of like the guy that Phillip Rivers is going to rely on in similar way to like Antonio Gates was his guy. So I have a feeling Mike Williams is sort of moving into that Antonio Gates sort of targeting role, because he's got the size too. He's a big guy, and I really like Mike Williams this year. I was kind of glad he was left in our draft for me to pick up. I was just over. I didn't think I was going to get him, but people didn't want him, and I thought, wow, Mike Williams, the guy I wanted. So you're free to comment on that if you wish. But,
No, I think it's going to be great. I think Tyrell Williams leaving opens up a lot of targets. It's going to be. I'm curious to see how he and Hunter Henry split.
Right, the RB breakout. I guess so we're around the turn here, and it's I'm up again. And believe it or not, this year, now you're going to think I might be crazy with all the things about Leonard Fournette being injured and having this thing. For some reason, I've been wanting to target Leonard Fournette as a bargain, and I have a feeling he's really gonna show us some stuff that should have been shown last year, but for all the hamstring injuries he had last year. But I mean, he could get injury again. I completely understand that's why people weren't drafting him and they were shying away from Leonard Fournette, was because of the, he steps on the field and he gets a hammy. But I've been actively targeting Leonard Fournette this year, and I think he will exceed expectations. And he's currently being drafted as I think a RB2 sort of, more of an RB2. But I see him joining the top 10 ranks again, and being a guy that next year people are going to be wanting to have in round one. So he's going to be a round one. Back to a round one fantasy football player. So he's my guy. Kev, you're up. Who's your breakout RB?
Quick comment on Fournette. Love Fournette this year. I think the talk of them using him in the passing game a little bit more is not just smoke and mirrors. I think they're actually going to use him in the passing game a little bit more. The offense should be a little more productive with goals there, and I think Fournette has a good bounce back season. So I'm with you on that.
Okay.
So my guy is Justice Hill. A little bit of a homer pick, but I've been watching him all preseason, and he's a beast, man. He's a really talented guy. A little small, 5'9", 190, something like that, but he's powerful, and he runs like a 4.40. So speed, power, can catch the ball. Mark Ingram probably will still be that guy, but we've seen that Mark Ingram isn't a bell cow type. He's the type of guy who can and probably will need to share carries and touches. On top of that, he's 31, might get injured, something like that. If he gets injured, Justice Hill, obviously the Ravens are going to run the football a ton. He's someone who's going to have standalone PPR value and as like a satellite back type. And if something happens to Ingram, or if they decide to hand Hill the reins, he could be like a league winner. Like, I think he's that good.
Right. I will comment on Justice Hill. I have watched him. Actually, a few of the Ravens I've been quite impressed with. We talked about Boykin one day, and I'm quite impressed with Boykin's very surprising player. Justice Hill, the power, and but you're gonna have to stash. You've got to be patient. That's the only thing I have to say about him. But definitely could exceed expectations and eventually eat himself into perhaps the top role. Jono?
I'm going to go David Montgomery. He is one of the only rookie backs that has a clear shot at a good number of touches. Tara Cohen is there in Chicago as well, but as we saw last year, he can't handle a good number of carries. He is the prototypical passing back, and the Bears have said they want to decrease his touches. Montgomery is a great back in college. He's quick, he's strong, he can break tackles, and given a good number of touches that we're expecting from him, he could be this year's breakout running back.
Yeah, I one more thing I'd like to mention about the Bears, and that's Mike Davis. Mike Davis is actually a really good, kind of a cuffy kind of guy to have, if anything happens to Cohn or Montgomery. So, if you do pick up, Tyron, you can get a really good cuff with Mike Davis. I don't know whether you agree about that, but I think,
I think Mike Davis has some standalone value. I saw a Vegas prop that his over-under is about 580 yards, which is, I don't know, seems surprisingly high.
Speaking of Davis, Jono, you're up again around the turn for our biggest bust wide receiver.
Yeah, I'm going with Corey Davis. I know third-year wide receivers are supposed to be the year they break out, but I don't see much from Davis to tell me that he can break out or do what people are expecting him to do in his third year. Mariota hasn't shown that he can carry a good wide receiver either. I'm just not trusting the Titans in general. I'm going to write them off like everybody else does and say, no, don't draft Corey Davis.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. I hate the Titans offense. It sucks. And proof positive in that in the last 2 preseason games, they were just awful. I never saw anything exciting about that offense. And Mariota, no growth. I hate to say it. I had such high hopes in him at one time, but I don't know. The growth isn't there, sadly. Kev, who's your bust?
I'm trying to decide between which one I want to give because I think they're both going to be equally bad.
Well, I'll give you a 2 for 1. Why not?
Let's get the first one out of the way because I think the fantasy community as a whole is kind of down on him. Jarvis Landry, he's just a volume dude. He averages about, not counting his rookie season, he averages 152 targets per season. It's just not going to happen. And even with all those targets, you're looking at a guy who's going to get you maybe 1,000 yards, maybe 6 touchdowns. Career high 9 touchdowns 2 years ago, but every other year scored 4 or 5 touchdowns. So you're looking at a guy who, with the decreased volume, you can probably just decrease his yardage right along with that. So you're looking at 800 yards, maybe 4 or 5 touchdowns, something like that. Odell is going to be the guy. Njoku has to get his. Callaway is going to be good when he comes back. Higgins is a guy that we like. Chubb is there. Kareem Hunt is going to be there. There's just not enough for Landry to keep up the volume that he has. So stay away from him. He's currently being taken as the wide receiver 29. I would take him probably closer to 40. The other guy who is a little bit more bold, Kenny Golladay is someone that I'm really not that high on this year. Last year, he had a really good season. Some would consider it a breakout, but I mean, we were looking at half a season where he didn't play with Marvin Jones because he was hurt. Golden Tate got traded midseason, and they were running dudes like Bruce Ellington out as the second wide receiver. Didn't have a tight end. Theo Riddick was hurt. So Kenny Golladay was literally the number one focus of that offense, and I just don't believe that that's going to happen this year. The Lions want to run the ball a lot. They brought in Darren Bevel. They beefed up the O-line. They brought in C.J. Anderson. Kerryon Johnson's going to be better. I just don't see Kenny Golladay getting 120 targets again. I would have him, who's being drafted wide receiver 20, and Marvin Jones, who's being drafted wide receiver 37, probably a little bit closer to each other than they're being drafted.
Right. Yeah, I kind of agree I've really had a hard time with getting to grips with Jarvis Landry and a huge target. But the thing about Jarvis Landry, he's just so between the 20s. He's not like a red zone guy, but he, like you say, he's going to get a lot of, I see those targets going towards his way, but I see that being scaled back because of OBJ and stuff. So hardly agree about Jarvis Landry in your comment there. For me, I don't know, this might upset you a little bit, Jono, but I'm going to have to say Julian Edelman. I think they're going to scale back because I'm not going to be an ageist and say they're going to scale back, but I have a feeling he's going to be sharing a lot more with Philip Dorsett. So I have a feeling that Julian Edelman and Dorsett are going to be a little bit more. I think you're going to see a little bit more of Dorsett doing Edelman's role, and I think we'll be seeing. I think one thing you're going to be watching, you're going to be saying is the snap counts for Edelman not being as much as they used to be, because I think they want to try and preserve him as long as they can throughout the season. So I think anybody drafting Edelman has to keep it in mind that Philip Dorsett is probably going to. They're kind of working a little bit more of Philip Dorsett in order to preserve Edelman a little bit more. So I don't expect the heavy workload that we saw back in the Edel Gronk years. So I'm going to say my choice is Julian Edelman. And moving on for the biggest, well, unless you guys want to comment on that, Jono, do you?
No, I'm okay.
You're okay with that one?
I'm okay.
Julian Edelman speaks for himself.
All right. Yeah, I'll
hold it on that
one. I don't care if Julian Edelman wants to say, "Okay, Richard, I'll hold my beer." Fine, go ahead and do it. Go do it. But I don't know. I just don't see that happening. But anyway.
I mean, right now I'm struggling time-wise, so I'll hold my.
Okay. All right. So we'll go quickly with this. Marlon Mack for obvious reasons, the Colts offense really sucks, and I don't even think anybody behind him is going to be much better. But I think Marlon Mack, people drafting Marlon Mack are going to be probably looking elsewhere, and I think he might even be, dare I say it, droppable at one point in the season. Kev?
Yeah, I mean, Mac notoriously is known for his blitz. When the Colts win, he's amazing. When the Colts lose, he's not that great. Naheem Hines is better back when the Colts are losing. If you project the Colts to be worse of a team, which obviously they will be, then you have to downgrade Mac a little bit. I don't think he'll be that bad. I think the rest of that team is probably good enough for him to be kind of a value. But if his ADP falls a little bit more, I'd like him. But right now, he's a little bit.
Okay.
I am going to go with the guy I already mentioned, Tarek Cohen. Right now he's RB31, 71st overall in Fantasy Pros. The Bears aren't going to be behind enough that they're going to throw to Cohen with Montgomery in the mix. I don't think he's going to be Jordan Howard and run for like 2 yards a carry, but Cohen's not going to get the kind of targets that he was last year. And when he does, he relies on breaking big ones, and that's not trustworthy on my teams.
Okay, Kev.
Derek for me. I think we all know what risk he carries. For the first 43 games of his career, he was super pedestrian, averaged about 4.1 yards per carry. Amazing at all, to be honest. And then these last 4 games, he busted out. But I don't really think that's. I think people are drafting him as if he's going to be somewhere in between. I tend to still think he's that guy from games 1 to 43. So I'm staying away from him. If he ends up being a monster, let someone else can do it. I'm not.
Well, we run right up against the clock here today, guys. We're going to have to do the rest of our predictions next week. I want to thank everyone for joining us on the Fantasy Edge, and be sure to check out Joe Bond and AJ Applegarth on the Fantasy Six Pack Hour on Fridays. Plus, also check out fantasysixpack.net for all the articles related to season-long starts and sits and waivers and various articles of interest in the fantasy community. So be sure to check that out. Also, our podcast will be produced on Tuesday, so that we will have all the waiver news for you to hear, plus Monday Night Football recap. So for Jonathan Chan and Kevin Ho, I'm Richard Savill for the Fantasy Edge. We'll see you next week, everybody. Take care.